Imagine you're having an emergency. Do you hope that you just have a close friend nearby, a group perhaps, or maybe a large crowd? Common sense would say that in an emergency, the more people around, the better. But human psychology may disagree. For many, this was brought to their attention in 1964 when, famously, Kitty Genovese was attacked on her way home from work at 3 a.m. She called out for help. She cried from the attack, which brought 38 neighbors to the windows to see what was going on. But over 30 minutes, which it took for her attacker to kill her, nobody intervened. In fact, nobody even called the police. This led newspaper reporters across the country to talk about how society was in ruins, how people didn't care about each other anymore, how people were just so disaffected from reality these days. This doesn't fit with how I think of human reactions. I know I would be really upset to see somebody attacked in front of me, and I can't think of anybody who I even know as an acquaintance who I think wouldn't be greatly affected by this kind of thing. But still, nobody came to her rescue. Psychologists have dubbed this phenomenon the diffusion of responsibility. The more people there are, the less likely any individual is to take responsibility. We see this in famous studies by Bibb Latané and John Darley in 1968, who took a participant and they simulated some kind of a crisis, something where they recorded whether or not the participant would go get help. And the big variable in most of these studies was to see if it would change if the person was alone with one other person or in a group. In their first experiment, they had the person supposedly just filling out a questionnaire, and after the person had gotten through 2 pages of the questionnaire, they started venting a strange smoke into the room. If the person was alone, they would investigate, and 75% of the time, they would go get someone to tell them about this smoke filling the room. But if you put a couple of other people in, 2 other participants even, who also have no idea what's going on, then, well, statistically, if you have 3 people, each with a 75% chance of going to get help, then 98% of the time, at least one of them should respond, right? But instead, when we had groups of 3, only 38% of the time did any one of the 3 go to alert somebody of this smoke. Nobody wanted to be the one to accept responsibility for the smoke, to be the one in case it was just nothing. And this got even worse when they took one participant and put them with 2 actors who would observe the smoke and act like it was no big deal, going back to their questionnaire, in which case the single participant only responded to the smoke 10% of the time. They would cough, they would wave it away, they'd rub their eyes in irritation, but without other people responding, and in fact with other people actively not responding, they treated it like it wasn't something they should deal with. The weirdest part of all this is when people did respond to the smoke, they said things that they weren't sure that it was dangerous necessarily, but that it was odd enough that they thought somebody should be alerted, as common sense would dictate. But when people didn't respond, uniformly across the board, they said that they were sure that it was nothing dangerous. Many thought that it was steam or some kind of air conditioner vapors. And 2 people from separate groups even stated that they thought it was some kind of truth gas that was being vented intentionally towards them to make them more honest in filling out these questionnaires. So, between having 1 person in a room with a potential health hazard or 3 people, it doesn't look good at having more people. But what if we increase the numbers? Is that trend going to hold? What if the danger isn't just some hypothetical, but obviously present? Well, in one of their later experiments, Latane and Darley did basically just that. They put individuals into cubicles where they'd have headsets and a microphone, and they were told that every participant was going to have a chance to anonymously talk about stresses and concerns they were having over college life. Unknown to the other participants, everyone else in the study was just a tape recording of people talking. The idea was everyone would have 2 minutes to speak, and then after everyone had gone through, they'd have 2 minutes to respond to other people. Well, one of the fake participants talked about at first struggling because he dealt with seizures and that they made college life difficult. And wouldn't you know it, when it came around to his turn again, he seemed to be struggling from a seizure. At first, he was at least a little bit comprehensible, stuttering, asking for help, saying he was having a seizure, that he needed emergency care, and the seizure seemed to get worse. He got louder, less comprehensible, even said that he could die from it. When people believed that they were the only person who could hear him having this seizure, 85% of them rushed out and got somebody almost immediately, and literally every single participant in that scenario went and got someone within 3 minutes. But if you had a single other person who supposedly could hear him in another cubicle, who the actual participant couldn't see or hear, that number went down a lot. In fact, only 62% of those people would get help immediately, and only 80% would get help ever. It got worse as the numbers increased. When you had one person with 4 fake participants alongside the person having a seizure, then it went down so far as only 31% of participants getting help right away, and 62% ever getting help. 38% of participants, when they had 4 other people they could rely on, did nothing. And it's not like they weren't concerned. Indeed, every single person, more or less, would ask about his health when a researcher came in to check later. They seemed physically more upset, if anything, than the people who had quite calmly told the researchers that there was a problem and please check on this guy. So you can't say that people don't care about each other. There's just something in our mentality that says someone else will take care of it. I don't want to be embarrassed if it turns out to be no big deal. I don't want to be the one to disrupt basic society by doing this. So if you're in a crisis, what can you do to overcome this? Well, if you're having a crisis, things that you can do: ask individual people. Try to tell people exactly what they can do to help, and all the better if you've interacted with the person before. It doesn't need to be a close friend. Studies have shown that even someone that you've made eye contact with before in a coffee shop or something is much more likely to help than someone who has never seen you before. And above all, if you see somebody else having some sort of emergency, go help. Imagine that you're all alone and that nobody else is going to be the one to help them. Because, in all probability, you might be right. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss out. Until next time, see ya.